You used to say that I was special, everything was right, but now you think I'm wearing too much makeup and my dress is too tight. You got no reasons to be jealous, I've never been untrue, so does it really matter if they're looking? I'm only looking at you.
Before I get into today's episode, I want to take a moment to give credit where it's due. The entire framework I use here, the idea that Justin Timberlake's post-breakup PR campaign laid the groundwork for how the media and industry later justified their abuse of Britney Spears, came from MC Castille, a podcaster and author whose research and advocacy have been a guiding light in this conversation. Mac has spent years dissecting how the narratives are built around Britney, how image, rumor, and misogyny intertwine until power and profit replace personhood. Her insight didn't just inform this episode, it reframed how I understood the story altogether. I never would have connected these dots or approached this series with this level of focus and urgency without her work. So this section, and honestly much of the series itself, is rooted in the foundation she built. This is my own interpretation, my own voice, but it's standing on the shoulders of someone who's been pushing this truth forward long after it was trending. A huge thank you to Matt Castille for her dedication, her courage, and for speaking truth to power about what happened to Britney Spears, and what it says about how women's lives are rewritten by the systems around them. Her commitment to justice, clarity, and compassion is what made me want to add my voice to this larger conversation. Britney and Justin's story was built like a fairy tale. They were Mouseketeers together in the early 90s, kids in polyester costumes singing Disney songs on sound stages in Orlando. The press resurrected that backstory the moment they started dating in 1999.
Before you were accepted in the Mickey Mouse Club, because you were too young to add into it. What did you do in between? You went to New York. Did you leave your parents over here and just went there?
No, actually, I tried out for the Mickey Mouse Club when I was really young. I was like 8 years old. And the casting director was like, you know, she's too young, but I think she should go to New York and experience what it's like there.
Hey, how come Tom Cruise isn't wearing a wedding band? Isn't he married to that Australian actress? Right. And didn't Julia Roberts, she wore her wedding band in the Pelican Brief. I know it, man, I saw it.
Seconds, so no lingering fumes will interfere with your movie enjoyment. So get Movie Master and take the annoyance out of watching your next movie.
Childhood sweethearts all grown up, now America's golden couple at the very top of the pop food chain. By 2000, they were everywhere. The Super Bowl halftime show, TRL appearances, magazine covers, the matching denim at the 2001 American Music Awards, a pop culture moment so absurd it became legend. They weren't just two young stars in love, they were the couple, a marketing dream. But under the glitter, things were a bit messy. By 2001, British and US tabloids, The Sun, The Mirror, the New York Post gossip columns, were already publishing stories about Justin in clubs with other women, from London nights out with All Saints singer Nicole Appleton to dancers on tour and weekends in Vegas. Those rumors barely dented his image. They were brushed off as Justin being young. Britney, meanwhile, was linked to choreographer Wade Robson and
Spears, just to name a few. Well, not impressed yet? Well, get this. He's only 19 years old. That's right. Tonight, Access discovers Wade Robson.
Now I want to bring out a guy who went from choreographing your music videos all the way to creating and directing your new tour. He's only 19. Here's Wade Robson. Wade?
Wade, he's already wrote the concept for the whole tour, and I'm starting tour rehearsals right now. It's crazy.
Is it fun working with Wade Robson?
Oh my God, yeah, this will be the third tour that we've done together.
And then two, she's just grown so much as a woman, and she's so much more aware of herself that on stage that just comes forth and she connects with her audience.
So you guys are like friends now.
Yeah.
That's cool to work with your friend.
Very cool.
Outlets like Us Weekly and The Star ran with it. Entertainment shows like Access Hollywood amplified the Wade story, pushing the idea that Justin had caught Britney crossing the line.
You had your chance to be my lover.
Although Justin says that all the lyrics on his new CD come from his own experience, he denies that any were written specifically for Britney.
And tell her she better just come get you.
Yet when we sat down at the piano and asked him to play something from Justified, he chose instead to play a song that nobody has ever heard before, interesting lyrics.
Thought our love was so strong. I guess I was dead wrong. But to look at it positively, hey girl, at least you gave me another song about a horrible woman.
The feelings of love weren't as developed as they possibly could be. At 12? Yeah, so I was pretty infatuated with her. It was, looking back on it, it definitely had this great expectations vibe to it. Justin, everybody has asked you what went wrong. As much as you can without my asking a dozen questions. Because maybe you can just say it once and for all and then the rest of us will never ask another question. You've been quoted as saying something very bad happened. You can just clear up this. The impression is that Britney did something very bad that hurt you. She had a relationship with somebody else. Was there an incident? Honestly, I mean, you know, we're not perfect. I don't judge anybody. It's a very intense relationship.
By 2002, when the relationship collapsed, the story was already written. Britney was the betrayer, and Justin made sure it stuck. He let the Wade rumor breathe, dropping hints in interviews and smirking when DJs prodded him. He didn't name her, but he didn't have to. He let the world do the math. Then came Cry Me a River, a Britney lookalike in the video, the lyrics dripping with accusation, and suddenly it wasn't rumor anymore. It was gospel. Britney Spears had cheated. The golden boy was wronged. End of story. Except, it wasn't the end, and it wasn't the whole truth. We don't know the rules of their relationship. We don't know what agreements they had, what betrayals actually happened, or who crossed the line first. What we do know is that Justin's own behavior, the clubbing, the hookups, the freedom to indulge, was quietly excused. Britney's alleged mistake was crucified. His sins were forgettable. Hers were a brand. The hypocrisy is staggering. After the breakup, Britney was devastated, barely able to get out of bed, isolated, crushed under the weight of the narrative. Justin? He was partying in Hollywood, in Vegas, showing up in gossip columns and late-night monologues, living it up while the press painted him as the wounded hero. One of them was grieving, the other was capitalizing, and only one of them got to walk away with their reputation intact. This is how the fairy tale ended. Not with two young people outgrowing each other, but with Justin Timberlake feeding the media a story that Britney Spears was the problem. It wasn't just a heartbreak, it was a setup. And it's the story the culture never let her outrun. It's no wonder when she releases an album or tries to write her own narrative, the world already expects her to be a disgrace. By the time the conservatorship machinery revved up, the public and legal perception of her as, quote, unfit had roots in episodes like this. Not because she was broken, but because the cultural machinery bent her into one, the disgrace that they claim her to be. When Britney dropped her self-titled album in 2001, it wasn't just another glossy pop record. It was her bleeding onto a track list, her emotions, her loneliness, her insecurities, her hunger to be seen as more than the product she'd already been turned into. Underneath the polished Max Martin beats and the mystical production, there were cracks. You can hear her trying to tell us who she was and what she was going through, but the world didn't want that Britney. The world wanted the Barbie doll in low-rise jeans. Take Before the Goodbye. It's not the kind of song that makes a Pepsi commercial or Rolling Stone cover, but it's one of the most revealing tracks she's ever recorded. It's aching, vulnerable, stripped down in a way that screams, I'm human, I'm scared, I'm not okay. But what did the public do with that? Nothing. They ignored it. The industry buried it. Because when Britney was honest, it didn't fit the brand. Vulnerability doesn't sell perfume or stadium tickets. Sex appeal does. And that's the tragedy of this album. Songs like Overprotected and her cover of I'm Not a Girl, Not Yet a Woman weren't just catchy singles. They were her diary entries dressed up as pop hits. She was literally telling us she was trapped between being controlled and wanting to grow up, between innocence and autonomy, and we, the media, the public, the so-called fans, flattened it into a punchline. Oh, Britney's confused. No, Britney was being suffocated, and she told us in real time. And let's name the system here. Early 2000s America thrived on punishing women for wanting autonomy. Misogyny wasn't just casual, it was the cultural backbone. Men could talk about sex, cheat, and brag about it, but Britney hinting at dissatisfaction or sexuality in her own music? That was evidence she was a liar, a slut, or a train wreck waiting to happen. The patriarchy had already decided how to frame her, so even her art got used against her. And this is what makes Britney, 2001, so devastating in hindsight. It was her saying, here I am, here's what I'm going through. And instead of hearing her, the world doubled down on the narrative that she was a product first, a woman second, and an artist dead last. That dismissal didn't just strip her of credit, it stripped her of identity. It set the stage for a decade where every ounce of her humanity would be twisted into evidence of failure. This wasn't just an album, it was a warning, and we ignored it. When In the Zone dropped in 2003, it should have been remembered as Britney Spears' most daring artistic leap. She co-wrote most of the album, pulled in global sounds that weren't yet on mainstream radio, and proved that she was more than the teen idol the industry built her to be. This was artistry, this was vision, this was Britney claiming ownership over her sound. That's not how the world saw it. Instead of celebrating her creative growth, the press twisted it into instability, promiscuity, and betrayal. Later, Diane Sawyer would grill her about, quote, disappointing little girls.
Esquire magazine. Consider the line officially crossed.
What happened to your clothes?
Well, I have on clothes now.
I know. But what's this about? No kidding. What is it about?
What is it about?
Yeah.
It's about doing a beautiful picture.
Is it about shocking people?
About shocking. You know what? I feel comfortable in my skin. I think it's an okay thing to express yourself. Have you seen?
You know,
I hate to bring this up, but Kate Hudson, she's 22, she's in Sheets. Jennifer Lopez, she poses very provocatively sometimes. Christina Aguilera, what's the big deal when I do it? Like, come on, you know? I don't understand.
I think everybody always thought you had a different relationship to young girls.
Everyone now, they look back and they're like, what happened to your sweet image that you used to be? And I'm like, then when I came out, you thought I was too provocative. It's like you can never win. No matter what you do, at the end of the day, you can't please everybody. You know, I'm not here to please. Ugh.
Have you ever gone further than you wish you had?
Gone further?
Yeah.
No. I don't think so. No. Okay. Now, those are a little much.
But it is true that kids made Britney Spears, and then she remade them in her image.
We love Britney! Oh, baby, baby, how was I supposed to know?
And then, in the past 2 years, that image has taken a highly explicit turn as she searched for a new edge. We wondered, does she care what her old fans, those kids, think, for instance, about this?
How could it hurt you when it looks so good?
At a domestic violence conference of all things in Maryland, First Lady Kendall Elrick, yes, the governor's wife, said, "If I had an opportunity to shoot Britney Spears, I think I would."
Shifting gears to a less serious matter, but one involving another wife of an elected official. Kendall Ehrlich, the wife of Maryland Governor Robert Ehrlich, says a comment she made about singer Britney Spears was an inadvertent figure of speech. It happened when Mrs. Ehrlich spoke at a domestic violence prevention conference last week and accused Spears of exaggerating the importance of sex for young girls. A radio station discovered the remark and played an audio tape of it on air.
You know, I really, if I had an opportunity to shoot Britney Spears, I think I would. I hate to say that, but like I said, I'm raising a boy, and I think, oh my goodness, what would I do if I had a daughter who is seeing these images and seeing that and having peer pressure.
Spears' record label issued a response saying that Mrs. Ehrlich shot herself in the foot by promoting violence at the Domestic Violence Prevention Conference.
Okay. I'm sorry. Not to interrupt the script, but this man really just sat here with a straight face and said, let's move on to a less serious matter. A less serious matter? This woman just sat here in front of thousands of people at a rally that is supposed to be against violence, domestic violence, which disproportionately affects women, and said that if she could, she would shoot another woman over arbitrary shit. Are you fucking kidding me? This is the world we live in. This is what this shit has come to. I'm sorry. I had to just come in here and just comment on that, because after watching that clip, I was like, what the fuck?
Oh, that's horrible.
Well,
That's really bad.
Because of the example for kids and how hard it is to be a parent and keep all of this away from your kids.
Well, that's really sad that she said that. Ew. You know what? Like, I'm not here to, you know, babysit her kid.
Shockingly, she laughed while saying it. Her bizarre joke was framed as a parenting lament and not a violent statement. She later issued a half-assed apology, calling it a figure of speech and inappropriate. This wasn't just an awkward TV moment, it was a masterclass in misogyny. A girl in pain gets asked if she was responsible for a man's suffering. A political figure jokes about shooting her. A journalist holds these moments up like they're her truth. This is how patriarchy polices a woman's creativity, sexuality, and humanity, by turning her into a cautionary tale. And because the music was sensual, experimental, and unapologetically adult, it became proof of Justin Timberlake's storyline, that Britney was reckless, unfaithful, and spiraling out of control. Her art wasn't treated as hers, it was filtered through a man. Justin's breakup campaign didn't just serve his career, it gave the press a blueprint. He cast himself as the victim and her as the villain, and suddenly every headline fell into place. Songs about desire were painted as scandal, independence was spun into breakdown. In the Zone wasn't covered as music, it was covered as gossip. That narrative stuck. The idea that Britney was reckless, untrustworthy, unstable, it became cultural shorthand. And once that narrative took root, it could be reactivated again and again whenever the world needed to keep her in her place. It wasn't just a breakup story. It was a foundation of how the press, the public, and later her own family understood her. Not as a full human being, but as a liability that needed to be managed. Years later, her captors would weaponize that exact script. The conservatorship relied on the same stereotypes Justin's PR campaign had cemented, that Britney was impulsive, irresponsible, and incapable of controlling her own life. They reverse engineered this smear into legal framework. Where he had used the media to boost his image at her expense, they used the courts to seize her body, her money, and her voice. Both campaigns depended on the same lie, that Britney Spears couldn't be trusted with herself. What started as a breakup metastasized into a captivity that lasted over a decade, and the public, primed by conservative standards of how women should behave, pure, maternal, and submissive, embraced that interpretation. Britney's refusal to fit the mold made her a target, and Justin's framing made her fair game. Critics praised male peers for risks Britney was mocked for. The pattern repeated. Britney could innovate, experiment, perform at the highest level, but recognition was withheld. She was cast and recast by the men around her. Britney Spears wasn't just judged by men, she was defined by them. In the Zone wasn't Britney's evolution, it was Justin's revenge plot. Britney Spears, one of the most influential artists of her time, was never permitted to stand on her own terms. She was always presented in relation to men. This is what I call the manifold, a layered structure built by men, and how Britney's image was filtered, controlled, and consumed through the male gaze, the PR executives, the paparazzi, the label heads, and even the broader cultural machinery that sexualized her and punished her for it. And Justin built it first. His breakup campaign cast Britney as unfaithful and dangerous to the good-turned-bad boys image. That frame stuck. Her music wasn't read as bold artistry, but as a confession and scandal. Every creative risk became evidence of this narrative. Every step forward was reinterpreted as another reason to distrust her. What makes Britney's story so insulting isn't just the pain she endured, it's how completely her life and work were boiled down into male focus. Yes, men have caused women problems since the beginning of time, but what happened to Britney shows something worse. Men became the entire framework through which her existence was understood, as is the fate of the modern woman, I suppose. She couldn't release In the Zone without it being read as a message to Justin. She couldn't become a mother without being judged in relation to Kevin. She couldn't build her career without it being seized as her father's financial pipeline. She was forced into orbit around the men in her life. That is the theft at the core of her narrative. Her substance, her problems, her achievement, and her art, all stripped down and reframed as stories about men. It wasn't just personal cruelty, it was cultural erasure. Her creativity, her ambition, all flattened into narratives that made her either a saint or a scandal, rarely an artist, almost never a woman with her own authority, and definitely not a human being. For someone of Britney's scale and influence, that erasure is not only insulting, it's a warning about how power works when women are denied the right to define themselves. To look back on Britney's story is to see the violence of erasure in action. Every time she tried to assert independence, the culture rebranded it as a crisis. When she explored sexuality, it was spun as desperation for male attention. When she revealed loneliness in her music, it was recast as pathology. Her reality was overwritten, her voice drowned out by other people's projections. That's cultural gaslighting. Vulnerability turned into the scandal, and creativity recast as insanity. Her life stripped of privacy and turned into public property. And here's the paradox. The very theme she was steered into became the cage around her. From the earliest singles, Britney's catalog revolved around love, desire, and loneliness. From the bottom of my broken heart gave us Baby, I Said Please Stay. Born to Make You Happy promised that she, quote, didn't know how to live without your love. These weren't accidents, they were deliberate. Her team knew audiences would consume a young woman cast as needy, yearning, and sexual, so they amplified those themes until they became her brand. This was commodification disguised as pop. Britney's emotions, real and raw, were sifted and polished into marketable traits. Vulnerability was turned into a lonely girl next door image. Sexuality was polished into a teasing spectacle. The contradictions weren't hers, they were engineered because contradiction sells. And then came the punishment. The same narratives that made her marketable became weapons used against her. What was authentic was exaggerated into a product, and the product was used to erase everything else about her. Britney wasn't simply boxed in. She was consumed by the very machine that profited off of her. She couldn't be both. Justin's PR campaign is where it all crystallized. He didn't just paint Britney as the betrayer. He handed the world a lasting template for how to read her. When she rebelled against invasive paparazzi, it was called a meltdown. When she tried to define herself outside of relationships, the press still defined her in terms of them. No matter what she did, her identity was stripped from her and rewritten to fit a narrative that sold headlines. He made villainization a cultural currency. The press built careers off of it. The industry justified its exploitation through it. Her family used it as a pretext for control. Justin's smear didn't fade with the breakup. It festered. It gave the culture permission to diminish her. What started as a PR win for him became the architecture for her captivity. The conservatorship didn't appear from nowhere in 2008. It was rehearsed in the headlines of 2002. And all of this is reinforced by the culture at large. A culture ruled by conservative standards that dictated a woman's worth through chastity, submission, and motherhood. Britney's sexuality was never framed as artistic expression. It was condemned as promiscuity. Her independence wasn't applauded as ambition. It was spun as collapse. Her loneliness wasn't recognized as human. It was turned into proof of fragility. This is the theft of autonomy. Long before the courts declared her incapable, the culture already had. Long before her father took her estate, the public had already taken her voice. Britney Spears was reduced, commodified, defined, and denied, and still she kept creating. And that's the rebellion. In the Zone was a vision, not instability. Her performances were labor, not breakdown. Her voice was art, not chaos. This is the through line. A young woman's autonomy was first undermined by a boyfriend's PR play, then codified into law by her father's legal machinery. In both cases, her narrative was stolen, rewritten, and used against her. She was never just Justin's ex, or Kevin's wife, or Jamie's daughter. She's an artist. She's autonomous. And she was right all along.